Hello there, it's Sunday night with Totally Football Show. Many thanks for joining us. Today's show coming to you on Sunday, the 17th of May, or thereafter if you're listening to it in podcast format. But many thanks if you're choosing to join us on our YouTube channel this weekend. Slight pause while I just check if anyone's written any nice comments for us to respond to. Hold on, this will be, the magic of editing. We'll remove all of this bit. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. We'll do that. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Interesting. Thank you very much for that. Right. Okay. Where did we get to? I said hello. Daniel joining us on this weekend. Here in the studio, Tim Spiers is with us.
How's it going? Hello, James.
Pretty good, thanks, Tim. Great. And yourself?
Very good, thank you.
You've got a little kind of bounce to you.
No idea why, but let's go with it.
1 week to the end of the season?
That's it.
That's the one. Look at you, Colin. You got your holidays already planned.
Oh, yeah. Everything mapped out. Right. I'm on the beach already.
Excellent.
So
good.
Let's see how this performance goes.
Very much not on the beach, ever. Unless it's in the City Islands occasionally. Daniel Storey. Daniel, what a weekend of drama we have to report on.
Yeah, it was the Scottish title race sort of started everything, carried on with FA Cup final. I quite liked the Sunday as the big Premier League day as a one-off. It completely messed with my head having a 12:30 game on a Sunday. So it was useful that my own team was playing it, otherwise I'd completely missed it. But yeah, a good day, I think.
Yeah. There was also the whole Xabi Alonso going to Chelsea news, that breaking. And now knock-on effects potentially in the giddy coaching carousel. We'll get on to all of that. We're going to begin, though, with the match that's only recently concluded at St James's Park. West Ham losing 3-1 away to Newcastle. West Ham gone then, says Nick Hamblin. Summing it up pretty nicely, actually. A fine victory for Newcastle. And one that came about, we'll just launch straight into it, shall we? One that came about because of Nuno Espirito Santo's disastrous opening lineup. Is that fair, Daniel?
I mean, yes, it was proven so. That shape did pretty well against Arsenal in terms of limiting Arsenal, and they obviously got a decent result there. It was the wrong move because the way to get at Newcastle is to unsettle them, is to kind of get high at the pitch, is to have more men in midfield rather than in your defence, I think. And so they just invited pressure. Against Arsenal, they actually kind of coped with that pressure pretty well. Here, they were like, it was a proper, that's why you're going down first half, because the defending for the first goal is absolutely shambolic. I think 5 different people make a mistake within about 6 seconds. And it didn't get that much better until half time, and certainly until Nuno had changed the formation and made that sub after 24 minutes. They improved after that and could have scored quite a few times, but yeah, they were bad stuff in the first half.
When they did score, after they'd gone 3-0 down, it was an absolute wonder goal. Tim, did you see this?
Goal of the weekend, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's a goal kick all the way through, just sort of bounces through to Tati Castellanos. I don't think it touches anyone else. And then, he sort of lets it back through onto his right foot, and a sort of 25-yard first-time volley. It's just too powerful and dips over the top of Pope. It was like a stunning goal. I was like, what? Where did that come from? Right. Obviously 3-0 down at the time. And he was great, Tati. He was inspirational. He could have had a couple more goals. And again, you just question why he didn't start. It's not like there's been enough evidence in the last few months to suggest that he's a bit of a talisman for them, So very, very strange.
Yeah.
Reminded me of that goal Jamie Vardy scored against Liverpool. If you remember that one, where the kind of ball comes up. One of those where the keeper has to be out that far to kind of cut down the angle, but it just makes the goal look absolutely massive when a striker does that. It just puts it over the keeper. Because you can either do it with power, as Castellanos and Vardy did, or you can just sort of lob the keeper. It makes the goal look massive. I loved it.
There was so much to take from this game. That goal, the whole tactical question surrounding the way that West Ham set up. Osler's Michael Jackson goal celebration, which I think perplexing is the politest word you could use. Colin?
Yeah, so the goal celebration at 2-0 quite early on in the game, and he takes out a white glove, puts it on his right hand, and starts pulling a few moves solo. He didn't moonwalk though, I don't think. So
I feel on a pitch it's not an ideal.
It wouldn't have been easy, but I think if you're going to do a Michael Jackson impression, that has to be in the repertoire.
Well, that's one direction you could go. The other one doesn't bear thinking about really at this point. It did beg the question when he scored the second one. Who's he going to homage this time? And I'm not going to say some of the recording artists whose name featured. Tim, take us on to another topic, perhaps.
Oh, yeah. West
All right,
Ham.
so that was also a bit strange. This was Kieran Trippier's final home appearance for Newcastle. We don't know, I think, yet where he's going to be going, but he is leaving the Magpies. Sky, curiously, after the Tati wonder goal, with West Ham still challenging, there was, I guess, about 5-6 minutes left in the 90, and then there was going to be 7 more minutes on. So there was quite a lot going on a major relegation influencing battle. Sky, curiously, decided we couldn't wait any longer to hear from Kieran Trippier, so they conducted a little interview with him and cut away from the action to it. I can't recall that for anybody else.
It does seem a little curious. Obviously, Kieran Trippier was the reason he was so big for Newcastle was he was the first signing of that era after the takeover, and I think it was the 21-22 season, having come from Atletico Madrid where he'd won the league, been Champions League final with Tottenham, and he was the sort of symbol that now we're a different club, now we're attracting different players. Obviously, a very good servant over the years as well, so it was very emotional from a Newcastle point of view for him to be moving on. But yeah, I was slightly surprised at that myself. I mean, like, the story of this game is definitely West Ham, isn't it? I mean, you can't escape that. You can't escape that.
Although from a Newcastle point of view, there'll be a lot of supporters saying, well, the story of this game is also the fact that we went 2 goals up and then we didn't throw away the lead, because that was the stat that came up early on in the match. Okay, you're 2-0 down, West Ham, but if any club is going to throw this away, it's Newcastle. They didn't here, Daniel. Were you impressed by them?
Yeah, I mean, West Ham, to be fair, when West Ham made the change, they had a couple of chances. There was that Nick Pope save, and then the follow-up is kind of blasted and blocked. I think it was just a case of Newcastle getting through that 15 minutes maybe after West Ham had made the change, and immediately looked completely different and completely better. But yeah, I mean, West Ham couldn't defend properly in open play. So every time Newcastle went forward, I did think there was more of that one-touch passing move. You know, we saw it for the second goal. There was more of that from Newcastle than we've seen recently. I think Voltemada playing behind the striker helps that. He kind of links up play. I think Barnes has been their best winger this season, so it makes sense for him to be involved in that as well. So yeah, they looked better, definitely. But the context of, you know, Hermansen rolling the ball out, Tadeo not making a challenge and leaving Voltemada 5 yards in the box when he's like 6'17" is inescapable.
All right, well, West Ham then, that's 3 defeats in a row now. They can be relegated on Tuesday, Tim. If Spurs win at Stamford Bridge, that means the Hammers are down. If Spurs draw away to Chelsea, it still looks pretty much over because Spurs have such a whopping goal difference advantage.
Yeah, and that's important, I think, from a psychological point of view for Spurs, certainly for their fans anyway, that they don't have to go to Chelsea and win, which is what they've all been fearing for months, because obviously they've been looking at the fixtures and how do they get themselves out of it. And Chelsea away, a stadium where they've won 1 match in 41, going back to 1990. You know, it's fair to say they've got a bit of an inferiority complex when it comes to playing Chelsea. But given Chelsea's form and the state of that club at the moment, and yeah, Spurs, the form that they're in, going there to get a point doesn't feel insurmountable now. And yeah, as you say, that's all they need. Is
there any way that Chelsea's form will be impacted by the exciting news that broke on Saturday?
I don't know. But I think Chelsea have just been in a rut for a long time, and like, obviously you've got a new manager coming in, but that will still feel quite a way off. I think quite a lot of those players might already have more than one eye on leaving the club this summer. Certainly some of their more important players. I think Chelsea, from a financial point of view as well, would be open to that.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, I kind of think that there's just going to be a lot of change in that playing staff as well. Just to get quickly on the relegation battle, just on West Ham being far too passive in this game and the run of defeats. I think the one match now that we kind of think they're probably going to go down now, the one game that sticks in my mind is whenever they drew 0-0 at Crystal Palace on a Monday Night Football. This is actually quite a while ago now, maybe 3 or 4 match days ago. And had they have won that game against Crystal Palace, and Palace had come off the back of beating Fiorentina, their players had been out partying a couple of nights before, they had made mass rotations, they could not care less about that game, and West Ham seemed happy enough to play for a 0-0. And had they have won that, they would have gone 2 results clear of Tottenham, and they were just like, we'll just sort of play it safe, we'll play it passive. And I think that's kind of what's cost them, because if they'd have won I think that might have been close to insurmountable.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can also point to I know they lost 3-0 at Brentford, but VAR came out this week and said that West Ham should have had 2 penalties that day. They also hit the woodwork 3 times. They had an offside goal ruled out for a shoulder. So, but I hate to agree with James Corden. I don't do that very often, but he said this week it's not due to VAR that and West Ham losing to Arsenal that they're being relegated. It's years of mismanagement at the club.
I thought she'd left.
I think there are others still culpable. But look, they just left themselves too much to do, West Ham. When Forest beat them in January, they were 7 points adrift. I'd forgotten that, to be honest.
Wow.
And they were 13 adrift of Spurs, having played a game more. That was in January after Forest had beaten them. So, yeah, obviously 3 defeats at the worst possible time, but they just left themselves too much to do.
All right. Well, we'll see on Tuesday then. I still feel that if you're a Chelsea player, the fact that they brought in what looks like a really proper manager and have some really proper ideas about what they're going to be doing going forward as opposed to whatever it was they were doing before might make you feel a bit more invested in the project, to use the romantic version of events. Daniel, you're grimacing at me. I'll move on, shall I?
Well, no, I think in theory you're right. It's just that I would, if I was a Chelsea player, I'd like to think that maybe it occurred to me to try and play quite well before now, rather than just from this moment on with 180 minutes left of the season.
All right. Battle of the Bridge is on Tuesday. Monday, of course, there's Arsenal in action. And also on Tuesday, their title rivals Man City will be doing their thing. Man City, who are coming off yet another bit of silverware under their fantastic manager, Pep Guardiola. Let's get on to the FA Cup final, for it was that next. Bit of comms, Charlie? I can't imagine of what. Yeah. Is that what he says? Okay. That's Guy Mowbray, isn't it? Right, okay. Semenyo special. Yep, indeed it was. Not a classic final, but a classic cup final goal from Antoine Semenyo, earning Manchester City yet another FA Cup. The numbers are quite extraordinary. That's 20 trophies that Pep Guardiola has claimed in 10 years as Man City's manager. In his time there, 4 Carabao Cups in a row, a domestic treble, a proper treble, 4 titles in a row, which has never been done before, 6 titles out of 7. And, well, I don't know. I didn't write down how many FA Cups. How many FA Cups is that? 3 FA Cups as well. Crikey. Let's talk about the goal, though, because that was the best bit of the game. Who wants to bang on this?
Yeah, I'll go for it.
Go for it. Antoine Semenyo.
A moment of real class. The turn in the finish. Because I think with Chelsea think that they have the situation under control, but just that moment of ingenuity, really, to pull off something that audacious. And it's not just the fact that he can do it. I think a lot of top level players can do that, but having the confidence and self belief in yourself that you can do it. And I think it's really, really important to highlight the Semenyo story, because this is a guy who had been rejected by club after club during his youth career. Arsenal, Tottenham. He was born in Chelsea, ironically. Obviously, he's never played for the club, but he pretty much had given up football when he was 16 or 17. He found a way back in, and his FA Cup debut was in August 2017 for a club called Highworth Town, who play in England's amateur Southwest Hellenic League. He played in front of 173 fans in a preliminary round defeat to Marlow. So he's come from that to scoring the winning goal in the final all these years later.
Okay, because this is breaking news, because I had Michael Cox's version of events, which has his debut in the FA Cup being against the Met Police, and contains the niche detail of the week that he was playing for Newport County on loan against Met Police FC in 2018, 7.5 years before he was the FA Cup finals winning goal scorer. The PA system crackling out, "I fought the law" by the Clash as the players come out of the tunnel. That's brilliant.
This was a preliminary round game, though.
Okay.
So that might have been an official FA Cup first appearance, whereas this was a preliminary sort of playoff game. I don't know if that technically counts as officially in the tournament, but yes.
But beyond all of that,
Yeah.
so Daniel's just to say, as you point out, it's incredible that this is perhaps the most determinant player of the second half of the season, and look where he's come from. Look what he's been through. Sorry, Daniel.
I was just going to say that on the Met Police that day was a defender called Nestor Guinness Walker, who now plays for Northampton Town, who is the great-grandson of Alec Guinness.
Really?
So, yes, indeed.
And he was playing against the force.
Des Walker there.
No, I'm going in.
Yeah.
He was playing against the force. Well, Alec Guinness was for him.
He
For
was
the
playing,
force.
He was playing for the Force, yeah.
No, he was playing
Force is
for the
with you.
force. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Tim. Back to yours.
You're under
Nonsense.
an S.
This is the bit
Okay.
yours.
All right. Anyway, so he's come a long way. How old's he now then, Antoine Semenyo?
I believe he is 26.
All right.
Although this is the Flaw of a Life
Everybody's
podcast.
26.
But it's really important to mention this, because at this time of year, when you've got thousands of young academy players being released by clubs across the country, thinking, "Oh, my career is in tatters." That's kind of the dream over, and that's your personality, and it's as a footballer, and it feels like it's gone at such a young age. But these stories do come around every now and again, and I guess like that is where Antoine Semenyo in particular is so important. But he's had an amazing season for two clubs, and it's been so important for City since he joined.
Yeah, the other January signing that City made, Mark Gay, who won the FA Cup last season with Palace, then got knocked out of it by non-league Macclesfield this season, and then won it again with City in May. That's pretty good going. The goal, though, because this kind of goal, I guess the most illustrious example is actually for Chelsea, the Gianfranco Zola against Norwich, would you say? How would you rate Semenyo's against that?
I was sorry. I was just looking. I mean, I hate to do this, but Gay shouldn't be playing in the final if he played earlier in the competition. You know?
Right.
I was just looking up. There's actually a Wikipedia page for Macclesfield v Crystal Palace just on the match.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Jimbo.
No, it's fine. I was wondering whether there is a line of thought, although everybody loves that Zola goal against Norwich, that this was maybe better because he doesn't just deflect it in, although I love the little skip that Zola does for his. He pirouettes onto it, so the timing is extraordinary. He doesn't just angle a foot at it, he actually spins onto it to fully whack it in with the inside of his foot, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and outstanding work from Haaland in the build-up. You know, we don't see that very often, but he shows great strength, doesn't he, to hold it up initially, and then really good cross. And look, I mean, it sounds simplistic to say, but this was the difference in the match because Chelsea couldn't produce anything like it. They had their opportunity with that Fernandes flick, didn't they, at the sort of from similar close range, and they couldn't do it. And ultimately, he was the difference. It's a great story.
Excellent.
Sorry, can I just jump in quickly because you mentioned Erling Haaland, who I actually thought he played very well in this game, but this continues his bizarre run of not scoring in semi-finals or finals. He's had 18 semi-finals, finals, including Community Shield, Super Cups. Scored 0 goals for Man City across those 18 games. No goals in 12 appearances at Wembley. He had an offside one in this game, but he played well. I mean, he led the line, and I think he's been so important for those players around him as well. When we talk about Cherky and Semenyo and the other attacking players, they have Doku as well in recent weeks. But yeah, it's a bit of an anomaly that.
Coming to our YouTube comments section, join us on a Sunday night if you'd like to participate. Nick Hamblin again says Semenyo's goal reminds him of Danny Welbeck's for England versus Sweden at Euros 16. Getting a lot of nods here in the studio, and also from Nottinghamshire.
Euro 2012, I think. Euro 2012, I think it was, against Sweden.
And Andron
Yeah,
says Mancini back heel, best back heel. I mean, it is, but for these people, they can enjoy those. Max Goddard says, Jimbo, how many pens do you think Chelsea should have had? Well, I must admit, when I saw that challenge, I thought that could be, because there's the argument of coming together, but when one player makes a deliberate beeline to take another player out before they can get to the ball, does that not constitute?
Was that Kusanov on Jed Pedro?
Yeah, thanks for supplying the names.
I don't know. I just thought he sort of got alongside him and then proved too strong for him, and he went down quite easily.
All right,
I don't know.
Fair enough.
He was great. I thought Kusanov.
You did?
Yeah. He's like a highlights defender. You know, he just with his speed and his anticipation, just the way that he gets the ball when you don't expect him to, he's like worthy of his own highlights reel, I think.
Okay.
He was great. It wasn't the best final. I think it was the fewest shots on record in the FA Cup final. I think it was about 20 years, but still. I wasn't impressed with Chelsea at all. Like, you watch... I don't know, you watch the Hearts Celtic game and everyone's like throwing everything at each other at the end of that game. I know we'll get onto that later. But did Chelsea throw any kind of kitchen sink at City in the last 10 minutes here? Did they even look, and maybe this is being too harsh, did they even look that devastated at the full-time whistle? I just didn't get the impression that they were really that
was part of the issue, and this might go for a lot of people, a lot of the potential audience, the fact that Chelsea and Man City in an FA Cup final, the last 10 FA Cup finals have all featured either Chelsea or Man City, so it felt very routine, I think. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I think Chelsea, I mean, as Tim says, it's not like they were going through the motions, but I mentioned it earlier, a lot of those players just feel totally disconnected from the club, from each other. Obviously, you've got all the chaos off the pitch that's gone on this year, so you can understand all that, but there wasn't, it felt to me like a very underwhelming final. I mean, if I was a Chelsea fan, I'd be looking at that thinking, there wasn't really that much difference between the two teams in the game. It was just fine margins, but they never made a concentrated effort to push for it. So, yeah, I'd be a little disappointed.
Daniel?
One note of positivity for Chelsea is I think in the space of basically a week and a half, Levi Colwill might have played himself into a World Cup squad, which is some effort given he's come back from an ACL injury. He looked Chelsea's best defender last week. He looked like Chelsea's best defender this week. He has this ability to make the game look easy, which going right back to kind of like Huddersfield Town loan, and all of the coaches have always said he's just like a supremely good defender on the ball, looks confident. It's just those injuries. I think he might have done it. I think he might have snuck himself in.
Brilliant. Excellent. Now, Chelsea, before the game, had fans protesting on Wembley Way about BlueCo's running of the club. But just an hour after full time, there was a major boost, really, to perception of the club's direction. The news that Xabi Alonso will be the new Chelsea manager next season, perhaps earning the owners a little bit of credit. All this exclusively revealed on theathletic.com, of course. Well, the Chelsea correspondent for The Athletic, Liam Twomey, joined us a short time ago to take a wild guess at what it all means. This seems like a good signing by BlueCo. What's the catch?
Well, I think the catch is that Xabi Alonso is called manager, not head coach. That is the big distinction here. No previous BlueCo hire had enjoyed that title, and it does suggest, and this is very much the message coming out of Stamford Bridge that accompanies this appointment, that Xabi Alonso will have a bit more authority, not just because of who he is and what he's achieved in the game, but that will kind of be baked into his position within this unique BlueCo structure, and that he may well have more of a voice over not just recruitment, but the kind of whole construction of a culture at Chelsea. And I think that's what, I think a lot of fans would agree that's what they need after this season.
How does this change their summer business? How good a fit is the current squad of players for what you'd expect Alonso to be trying to do?
Well, I wrote a piece for The Athletic on how Alonso's tactics, primarily at Leverkusen, which is, of course, the team that he's most famous for, might adapt to this group of Chelsea players. And I think there are some real raw materials to work with. João Pedro has certainly enhanced the number 9 position, but they still lack a little bit in wide areas. Now, will Xabi Alonso play with wingers or wing backs? Either way, I think Chelsea could maybe strengthen in those areas. There's a centre-back signing has kind of been on the agenda for Chelsea for about a year now. They just haven't quite found the right player. And when they thought they had in Jeremy Jacquet, they lost out to Liverpool for him. But he does have a talented core of players, even if they haven't necessarily shown it on the pitch as often as they could have or should have this season.
From the club's point of view, this does seem like a real coup, Liam. But from Xabi Alonso's, is it a bit perplexing that he's opted to go for the billion-dollar blue bottlers who are going to be definitely out of the Champions League, but quite possibly out of any Europe as well?
Well, I think as a coach, you're always victim a little bit to what is available at the time. And we can talk about Xabi Alonso's hypothetical options, but all of our reporting and understanding suggests that Liverpool just weren't ever really in for him, and that they are still very much committed to Arne Slot. That was the door that many assumed would open for him at some point. And of course, he's already had a bruising experience at a super elite club in Real Madrid that has maybe informed his view of his next career decision. And there are lots of questions about taking the Chelsea job after the churn of coaches that we've seen under BlueCo in the last 4 years. But that could also have been an advantage for Xabi Alonso in conversations with Chelsea, because they needed someone like him. They needed an appointment like this. And when clubs are in that kind of situation, you tend to get a few more concessions. Now, how the relationship will work in practice, how much power Xabi Alonso will have, we will see. But the message coming out is very much that he will have the autonomy to build a team in his image and to build the kind of culture that Chelsea have been really lacking, in part, I think, because they've appointed quite a lot of coaches who don't have the kind of authority and status and achievements that Xabi Alonso has. So I think there's a logic to it. While it is certainly a risky decision from his perspective, there's a logic to it, because he worked really well with a young, pliable group of footballers at Leverkusen and did extraordinary things. And then he struggled with a dressing room of international superstars at Real Madrid. I think you'd put the demographic of the Chelsea squad somewhere in between those two, but probably because of the age profile, maybe slightly closer to Leverkusen than Madrid. And that could bode well.
Themselves, says Tony Football Troop, hate Chelsea, don't they? It's so obvious, except maybe Jimbo. Well, you really read the room there, Sean Self. No, I think there's a certain, how can I put this? Is it Schadenfreude? Is it rubbernecking? When the big clubs, when the sides that have enjoyed privileges, whether it's your Man Uniteds or indeed the lot from down the Fulham Road, when they stumble and get it wrong endlessly, there is a bit of kind of clown cow fun with it, but it looks like it's joined up thinking time. Liam saying after we spoke to him that he was really looking forward to working and reporting on Xabi Alonso at Chelsea. Are you looking forward to having him in the Premier League, Daniel?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I can't believe that Liverpool have not appointed him. I can't believe he's going to Chelsea. I mean, to answer the point about kind of not liking Chelsea, that's not it at all. But the problem, and quite often, I'm not speaking for everyone, but when you cover big clubs, the thing that's most annoying is like the failed potential. It's like having all of the benefits and not getting it right, because there's a chance to create something huge and you're not doing it. And yet with this appointment, I tweeted, but it feels quite depressing to me that a club can basically get every major decision wrong for 3 years. And because of those, established wealth and power, you can still appoint the best manager. People talk about the one difference, or the biggest difference between financial elite clubs and non-financial elite clubs, is that for non-financial elite clubs, every year is year zero. Nottingham Forest is the best example of that this season. You can finish 7th, but it doesn't matter, because if you make 2 big decisions wrong or more, you could go down the next season. With the financially elite clubs, and Chelsea are the best example of this, you can get every decision wrong, and yet you have this kind of what I'd call terrible choice insurance, that it doesn't matter how many bad choices you seem to make, you can always still back yourself to kind of buy your way out of that hole and to still attract the big managers, because they can probably still spend a lot of money this summer to overhaul the squad. And yeah, it is frustrating for fans of every other club, but then that's the way of it. There's no point shouting at clouds. And yes, I don't blame Liam for looking forward to covering Alonso. It will be a blast. I hope that calling him a manager rather than a head coach means that they've understood those people behind the scenes are not the experts. We will see.
We will see. They aren't getting off entirely scot-free from their errors. They are currently in 10th place, so will miss out entirely on European competition. as it stands, they've won just 2 of their last 12 matches in all competitions, so the chances of turning that around on the final. Well, of course, they've got Spurs coming up, as we were mentioning, and then that final game on Sunday. We shall see. I don't know. It seems like a benefit for the Premier League, but Colin, and possibly at a time when the manager who faced Chelsea at the weekend is preparing to depart as well.
Yeah, my take on these sort of managerial situations is that that person is obviously very important to the club in terms of what they bring but it's more, I think they're much less important than most people assume them to be, right? I think, hiring Xabi Alonso's great. I think he's the outstanding candidate on the market for a number of reasons. He had a pretty poor spell at Real Madrid, it has to be said. Now, we can look back in hindsight and be like, well, look what's happened since he's left. There's a lot of problems there, of course there is, but he was brought in as both the guy who's going to be the systems manager, who's going to move away from these individuals, but also he had this sort of aura around him from his playing career, obviously from what he did at Leverkusen, to have an authority to speak to players and to communicate and to command respect. Now that failed, and it failed pretty badly in Madrid. Now that's not to say it'll fail in Chelsea. It's a totally different group of players, a totally different dressing room, but it's all about, I think from a Chelsea point of view, who have you got running your club? Like, what are the people who are running your club? What are their priorities? And when I looked at the players they signed last summer, it was just, it feels to me like they are signing players not to improve their team, not primarily for let's go out and win trophies. That's not their priority. Their priority seems to be let's sign players that we can maybe sell in the next 2 to 3 years at a profit. Now, that is just simply not a successful way to run a club.
The fact that Alonso's choosing to go there, is that a sign that he thinks that their philosophy going forward is not going to... I can't imagine him signing up for that, for a kind of a player evaluation program, essentially.
I mean, he'll be offered. He'll be being paid an awful lot of money, which we have to say must be part of the motivation for going there, and to move to London and to be back in the Premier League. I don't know what assurances Chelsea could have given him on that front, really.
Well, they've assembled a squad that doesn't match your expectations, but there is a lot of talent in there, Colin.
But also the thing is, everyone at the start of the season said Chelsea were probably definitely nailed on top 4, top 5. That was the minimum. Quite a lot of people were saying, oh, maybe a title challenge. And this is the thing that year on year, things can change so drastically between clubs. Look at Manchester United a year ago. Look at Manchester United 4 or 5 months ago compared to where they are now. So these clubs do have the possibility of changing things and changing them quickly. If Chelsea were to have a strong window and they actually were bringing in players that are designed to win and win within the sort of short to medium term, then of course they can be a force next season. Of course, if they sign players that will prescribe to Xabi Alonso's system, and we know that he loves playing with wing backs, we know that the sort of system he has, he's a very defined way of managing and coaching and playing. So if the club buys into him and they do so with the signings and the players buy into his methods too, I think it could be a tremendous success.
And also, there are a couple of easy wins for him in the transfer market. I mean, they've got 2 outfield players older than 26 in the whole group. No one aged over than 28. That was an obvious thing to fix there. The goalkeeper, I think, is another obvious thing. But he'll need time. I mean, Leverkusen, he did an outstanding job, but it was the culmination of 3 years' work.
Right.
The last Chelsea manager to get 3 years was Mourinho. And my first time Mourinho.
Wow.
So will he get that time at Chelsea? The odds don't favour it.
Okay. Chelsea's immediate future sees them take on Spurs on Tuesday. Before that, City and Arsenal have their next games in the title race. Gunners, of course, still 2 points clear of Man City. On Monday, Arsenal host Burnley. And then on Tuesday, City make the trip to Antoine Semenyo's old club, Bournemouth, who, as we never tire of mentioning, have not lost a game since they sold him to Pep's side. Very good. Let's get on to some of the action that took place beyond Newcastle West Ham on this Sunday in the Premier League next. What? There's a totally extra out as of last Saturday, featuring all the Intertotally Cup quarterfinals, all 4 of them together in one special souvenir pod. Daniel's in there, aren't you, Daniel? Okay, then.
I don't remember.
Okay, yeah. Let's have a look through the match day 37 results. West Ham losing 3-1 away to Newcastle. putting them in an extremely precarious position as regards their Premier League permanence. Earlier on Sunday, Man United were 3-2 winners at home to Nottingham Forest. Did Bruno Fernandes get an assist? Yes. Yes, he did. To draw level with De Bruyne and Thierry Henry with the all-time Premier League assist record. Could he have had 3 or 4 more? Yeah. I mean, as most weeks with Man United. But there you go. It all comes down to the final week. In the day's 4 3:00 kickoffs, there were draws for Brentford and Palace, 2-2, and Wolves and Fulham, 1-1. Leeds won their clash with Brighton with the last kick of the game, really, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, capitalising on a hideous error by, I'm not sure, one of the Brighton players. Who was it, Tim?
Oh, I wasn't watching.
Were you not watching?
Van Hecke.
Was it Van Hecke?
Yeah, centre back passed it into no man's land. Yeah. DCL pounced and rounded Verbruggen, who charged out of his area and calmly ruled it into an empty net.
Verbruggen, who'd previously let one of the Leeds shots squirm. Oh no, I'm getting confused with another game. Anyway, so that was 1-0. 1-0. At the Hill Dickinson, Sunderland came from a goal down to win 3-2 against 3-1. Was it 3-1? Good Lord. At the Hill Dickinson, Sunderland came from goal down to win 3-1 against Everton. Meanwhile, back on Friday, Aston Villa beat Liverpool 4-2 to move into 4th spot and make Liverpool very nervous spectators, potentially, of the game coming up on Tuesday between Bournemouth and Man City, because if the Cherries win that game, they will be only 1 point behind Liverpool, 1 point outside the top 5. Of course, Bournemouth City has some other stuff riding on it too, particularly if Arsenal should stumble on Monday against Burnley. But what did we make of Nottingham Forest's trip to Old Trafford? Daniel, I know this was one of the games that you were focusing on today.
Yeah, it was great. Well, I was going to say it was great end of season fun, but it was actually kind of great Michael Carrick managing Manchester United fun, and the game was extremely open. They kept on attacking even though they had a lead, even though it was creating space for Forest. The game could have finished 6-5 quite easily. There was a very controversial handball call, which I was amazed about. But just the quality of the goals was great as well. That's what I'd focus on. Elliot Anderson, I thought, was absolutely brilliant again. I know Manchester United want him this summer. I'm not sure that they'll get him because I think other clubs will too. And also, Morgan Gibbs-White scored an absolute belting goal from outside the penalty area against the club he supported as a kid. And I don't know if he's going to get on that plane on Friday when the squad's named, but I think he will be the most controversial omission if he's not. I think that's the work he's done over the. And it's still true that no English player has scored more goals than him in the Premier League this season, which is ludicrous, really, given that's not really his game.
Of course, if he does get on the plane this Friday, he's going to have a long old wait on the runway.
I think he'd take it. He could sort of sit there adjusting his mask for a couple of weeks. It'd be all right.
Yeah. Also on the score sheet, Luke Shaw with his first goal in 3.5 years. He took that well. Or was he a bit lucky?
No,
I
thought he took it really well.
Yeah.
And talking of being on the plane and being unlucky, I mean, there's only 10 outfield players who've played more minutes than him this season, which is very un-Luke Shaw-like. Yeah, and in terms of performances, in terms of experience, right at the top level of the international game, in terms of being a solid left back, Daniel is wrinkling his nose.
Right, and because England's so well stocked with left backs, that's the issue, right? Right.
I think it's 1.5, maybe. Yeah.
I think Shaw's problem. I agree with you, to be fair to him, but I think his problem is that he's benefited from only playing once a week all season, because Manchester United have only played once a week all season. I think there would still be worries about him having to play like every 3 or 4 days. But then maybe you take him as a sort of quasi centre back, quasi left back, can do a job, squad player. Maybe. I suspect it's him or like Lewis. I think Lewis Hall and Nico O'Reilly will probably both go, which is probably what it does for sure.
Okay. Let's talk about VAR, shall we? You mentioned the handball decision. I've seen strong arguments in both directions, often from the same people. It's one of those that really leaves us all a bit bewildered. This is in the build-up to, I think, the opening goal, was it not? Was it the opening goal for Man United?
It's 2-1.
It was 2-1, yeah. I beg your pardon. And Brandon Bomo clearly handles the ball. The ball essentially is caught between his midriff and his arm. which leads to some people saying, well, it goes off his midriff into his arm, but other people saying, well, no, he's controlled it with his arm, he's tracked it against his body, and then that allows him to then set up whoever it was who scored.
Mateus Cunha scored the goal. So essentially, the rules around handball are ambiguous.
Right.
Because the wording is essentially...
Let's just leave it there.
Did he mean to do it?
Yeah.
And then it's about interpretation. And also the handball laws, if it's the player that scores, it's disallowed. But if it's the player that sets it up, it's an automatic. And that to me just makes no sense, that it's based on the outcome of the event rather than the actual event itself, if that makes sense. And I kind of just think the whole subjectivity around these decisions means that having a VAR overseeing things won't clear anything up. It'll just lead to more controversy and more debate, more turbocharging of paranoia and complaining and everything else that football fans absolutely love.
Excellent. Very good. Let's move on then.
It's a shame that sort of overshadows it, because the Bruno Fernandes stuff was great fun.
Yeah.
Like, he was a man on such a mission, but an unusual mission.
Right.
Because he was turning down shots from like good positions, because he was just determined just to pass the ball every time.
Yes, and there was one in which he inadvertently almost got the record-breaking assist right at the end when trying to take a shot, and then he stumbled over the ball and it went to a teammate who then shot wide.
Yeah, and there was another one where he tees up on Mbumo and he fires over the bar, and Fernandes just drops to his knees like, oh, I can't believe it.
Like William Dafoe in Platoon.
Yeah, just like it. But then he started smiling afterwards. So but no, it was great fun, and also the keeper was up to celebrate with the guy who made the assist when Fernandes teed up.
It's great end of season vibe.
It was good
fun.
Yeah,
it was also, I mean, a game with nothing riding on it really for anybody.
But that Fernandes assist was so good. I mean, it's just like the fizzed low ball right into the perfect area, impossible to defend, and like I think he's the best playmaker in the world right now, and has been all season. And actually, when you say all season, half the season he's been playing in a role which he was entirely unsuited to, deeper in the pitch. And if he hadn't have been, like, how many assists would he have ended up on overall? But just such a fantastic player on so many levels. And I know he hasn't won the trophies he's wanted to win with his Manchester United team, but when he's playing like that, and when Manchester United are set up to suit his strengths, which Michael Carrick obviously has done, he's obviously prioritised making sure he gets on the ball at the start of these sort of vertical counter-attacks, then he's just devastating, and he has been for the past 4 or 5 months.
It's a good job they didn't sell him last summer, isn't it?
Yeah. Aston Villa is the final game this season. Can Bruno Fernandes make a goal?
Brighton.
Is it Brighton?
Yeah.
What am I reading then? Brighton. Oh, that's different. But they're both from Manchester. It's so confusing. We'll go again. Brighton are the opponents on Sunday for the Can Fernandes make a goal-making Pasico, as they'll be calling it on Sky, I should think. Casemiro waving goodbye to Old Trafford with this game. Is Michael Carrick set to stay? Kind of looks that way, doesn't it, Daniel?
Yeah, I think so. Partly because he's done very well in the job, partly because there aren't a huge number of other options, certainly not options that would be as happy taking on. It would have been very easy to follow Ruben Amorim. It's a lot harder now if you get rid of Michael Carrick. I think it makes sense, probably. It's a 2-year deal, we're told, with an option of another year. So, it's not going to be hugely expensive if it does go wrong. I'm not convinced it's the right decision, but I can certainly see why they've made this more than why they've made other decisions in the past.
All right. Quick mention for Pineapple Tree Trunks. Further our chat of Bruno Fernandes having a frustrating time of it, setting up chance after chance, but then not being finished by the Man United forwards. Can't wait for Portugal to ruin Fernandes World Cup by having a 41-year-old centre forward. Oh, dear. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. It was a fine send-off for Casemiro, and may well be the start of something new with Michael Carrick next season, and a full season with him, with a club that seems to have got its thinking in order. We shall see. We shall see. Brighton, as mentioned, coming up at the weekend. Brighton, who on Sunday afternoon were defeated late on at Ellen Road against Leeds, one of the 4 games that kicked off at 3:00. We were kind of looking at all the second screening here, there and everywhere. and the games were maybe not as huge an importance as some of the other fixtures this weekend. So let's see what there was to know about these games. So who, for example, was watching the Leeds Brighton game? Colin?
Yeah.
Quickly, what was the story here?
Brighton were the better team in the boxes. Leeds were the better team in the boxes themselves. And it was typified by that late goal when a Brighton no-look back pass from Van Hecke, Verbruggen comes third around the box, Calvert-Lewin scores into an empty net. But Brighton had 19 shots in the game. They had a shot from Danny Welbeck cleared off the line. A lot of different chances. They just didn't have a killer instinct. Obviously, Karo Mitoma ruled out for the rest of the season, ruled out of the World Cup for Japan, which is a great shame because he's one of my favourite players. I just love watching him. He's just such a fantastic forward. But yeah, Brighton now really do need to get something out of that Manchester United game. I think there's still a chance, albeit a very slim one. They could finish sixth, get into the Champions League. But I think really now they're aiming for a Europa League or potentially Conference League slot going into the final round of matches.
Right, Brighton currently 2 points behind sixth place. Leeds United, meanwhile, 8 games unbeaten. That goal was their only shot on target and came in the 96th minute. So very much to your summary of who was dominating. Brentford, who were also in the mix for potentially elbowing their way into the Champions League places. A 2-2 draw for them with Crystal Palace. This was a lively one. Daniel, you were watching this.
Yeah, one thing to know from each team. For Palace, Adam Wharton scored his first goal for Palace on his 94th appearance. Celebrated with a somersault, as he did when he scored his first goal for Blackburn back in 2022. And his mum was in the away end. All the away end realised his mum was in there. She went mad when he scored. And they chanted to her and she chanted her chant, which was great. And Brentford scored, I think, the most aesthetically pleasing long throw goal I've ever seen, which is Michael Coyote, who has this incredible ability to throw the ball long and flat. And then Sepp Vandenberg, who's about 7'8", jumps really high, about 2 foot higher than everyone else, flicks the ball on to the back post where Dango Atara is there to head the ball in. It just looked like undefendable. It was a perfect long throw goal. And yeah, Brentford will be annoyed because Palace, they would have expected Palace to be kind of waiting for the European final and winding down, but Palace were by a mile the better team for most of the game.
The race for Thursday night football sees Brentford head to Liverpool next Sunday, while Brighton host Man United. Everton once dreamed of maybe a spot in European football, but they are way down the pile now, finishing this weekend in 12th place after being beaten 3-1 by Sunderland in a game that Everton were actually leading, Tim.
Yes, so you talk about emotional farewells today for Trippier and Casemiro. So in the 88th minute
Seamus Coleman
of this game, Seamus Coleman comes on. He's leaving the club in the summer, 17 years, as their leading appearance maker in the Premier League. This was his 434th appearance, takes him above Dixie Dean in the all-time appearance list. So, of course, he gets a huge standing ovation. I mean, my God, what a player, what a servant. Right. In the 88th minute. And then in the 91st minute, his mistake leads to Sunderland's third goal. And, Everton maybe booed off the pitch at full time. And their European dream is over.
I'm just looking at Everton's last 5 results. So they today led 1-0 against Sunderland, lose 3-1. Drew 2-2 against Crystal Palace, having led twice. 3-1 up against Manchester City in the 82nd minute. Drew 3-3. Last minute goal to lose at West Ham. Wow. Last minute goal to lose against Liverpool. And that's 10 or so points that they've dropped from late goals. And had that not have been the case, they could well have got a top 5 spot potentially. But they've really just tailed off. And I kind of think this is...
Is that a fitness thing, do you think, Colin?
I mean, it might be, but... It kind of feels like that happens quite a lot with David Moyes teams.
Is it a fitness thing, or is it not a particularly deep squad that will be essentially brought back by teams that have greater wealth to bring off the bench?
I think that's fair. I've said it all season that I don't think Everton have a top half squad. And David Moyes was punching above the sort of weight of resources that he had available. And it's maybe come to pass a little bit. But yeah, I do also think that the sort of one reservation over his managerial style is that whenever his team have a lead, they do tend to sit back quite a bit. And that maybe is something that has played out in that run of results. Maybe I'm being harsh, but that's my perception of it.
Okay, they go to, there's 6 games without a win, Tim, just to say they go to Spurs, Which is if you're a team on a bad run of form, traditionally there's one club you want to face. Call the doctor.
Yeah, well, especially this season at that stadium.
Yeah.
There's still only won once there since the opening day, I think.
But you wanted to say something else, I think.
Just in terms of squad size and funds for Everton, yeah, that's an issue, but it's an issue for Sunderland too, and they are somehow still in the European race, which would just cap the most incredible season. It felt like after they'd done the double over Newcastle and reached the 40-point mark, that they're sort of on the beach really, and they have had poor form in the last few weeks, winless in 4 before this. But it shows you how tight it is. 1 win, and yeah, they are back in the hunt for Europe, being incredible into their season.
Right. 51 points, 2 more than Newcastle, 2 places above Newcastle, up in 9th place, 1 outside the European positions as it stands, although 9th could still get you into Europe. Daniel?
Just to say on Sunderland, if they beat Chelsea next weekend, they will go into the top 10 all-time points totals in the Premier League by a promoted club, which is ludicrous, given they were the shortest odds to finish bottom of the table at the start of the season. They've also only taken 15 points in the last 13 games, and they've still got a shot of Europe, which kind of sums up the madness of that Premier League mid-table.
Yeah.
And the one point I want to make on Sunderland quickly is everyone said Granit Xhaka, one of the signs of the season. Brian Brobby is also one of the signings of the season. Not necessarily in terms of his goal output, but the goals he scored have been really important. But he's just such a classic old school centre forward. I can't really remember ever seeing a striker just come into the Premier League and instantly just bully so many defenders, make it such a physical battle. I think he's quite fun to watch, and he gives them such a focal point up front. Some of their transfer business has been really smart, and he's among that, I think. Excellent.
The game we haven't touched on yet, Tim, it's a big one. Wolves against Fulham. So this was Wolves' last home game of the campaign. Was there a lap of appreciation from Rob Edwards and the boys?
No, he was sort of booed again at the end, sort of getting a bit awkward. In the latest news as to how bad Wolves are, this will now be their worst season ever in terms of points. That's official now. Their lowest previous tally in a 38 minimum game season was 23 points in 1906, and they can only beat Burnley to finish 19th in what some are terming El Crapico on the last day of the season, 19th through 20th. Yeah,
right. The positive from this game, would that be 18-year-old Matthijs Mane and his wonder strike?
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, he's sort of burst onto the scene, as it were, in January with a couple of good performances, and has really tailed off since, mostly due to being overplayed. He was playing 90 minutes every single match because Wolves got no other players of note. But yeah, he's sort of had a little burst again at the end of the season, and Rob Edwards confidently said afterwards that he will 100, this is Mane, not himself, he will 100% be there next season.
Excellent.
Is, good news.
Excellent. And the equaliser for Fulham, a beautifully dispatched penalty from Anthony Robinson, who apparently has never taken a penalty before or something like
also,
that.
He hadn't scored in 150 matches.
Wow.
And then, it was a really cool pen.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
So, Rob Edwards is going to be at Molineux next season, is that right?
It's not been confirmed by anyone, but there was a fans forum in the week with him and the technical director and the new chairman, and the fact that the club are willing to sort of put him up in front of fans, and he's talking very optimistically about next season as he would do. So there's no signs that they're going to get rid of him. He was 3/4 brought in for next season.
Okay.
So,
What about his opposite number in this game, Marco Silva? Any word yet on what's happening there? Daniel, you're nodding.
Well, it sounds increasingly like he is Benfica's choice to replace Jose Mourinho. If Mourinho goes to Real Madrid, that would make quite a lot of sense anyway. Silva, I just think that contract would have been signed quite a long time ago. It was going to be signed. Fulham haven't gone down the route of that Bournemouth did and Palace did, or Glasner did by announcing his own departure. But it does feel like a natural break, not least because I think there's a heck of a lot of work to do with that Fulham squad now. They've only scored, take out a home win against Burnley, in which they scored 3 times. They scored twice in 9 games around that. One of them was the penalty today. And Jimenez is 35 now and is going to be playing at the World Cup. Muniz has been poor this season. Harry Wilson's out of contract. I just think Fulham are one of those, whenever I doubt them, they always go and win 4 in a row or something. But it feels quite a big summer for that ownership because they're not universally popular, and Silva has constantly overachieved there, and I think has probably got a bit tired of it.
Marco Silva, if he was to go to Benfica, it would come a decade on after he was sacked by their Lisbon rivals, Sporting Club. He was sacked after winning I think after he won the Portuguese Cup at the end of the season, and Sporting already had an agreement to appoint Jorge Jesus, who's from Benfica, unbeknownst to Silva. And the reason that they had for sacking Silva essentially was that he had worn a tracksuit rather than a suit for one of the matches during the season, and they had rather just been like, yeah, that was the reason we're getting rid of you. The following day they appoint Jesus, so maybe he still remembers that a decade on.
Is that why Callum McFarlane didn't get the Chelsea job?
Oh yeah. Good point. By the way, all this talk of him going to Benfica is dependent on Jose Mourinho not being there. Jose saying this week, amid reports that it's all settled for him to go to the Bernabeu, that he is there is 99% chance I stay at Benfica. So interesting. Anyway, we'll be talking about perhaps some of those things in the Totally Football Show European edition, which will be out with you on Tuesday. We'll touch on a barnstorming season finale in the Bundesliga by Bayern Munich, and have a little look forward to the Europa League final on Wednesday. Freiburg, the opponents for Aston Villa. We'll catch up on the crazy race for the Champions League places in Italy and loads of other stuff too. So do join us for that on Tuesday. Meantime, speaking of football not seas, but football abroad, football in other countries. Meantime, speaking of football in other countries, next up, let's clear up exactly what happened at the climax of that magnificent Scottish title race. So Saturday saw the big title decider between Celtic and Hearts, following on all the VAR controversy and that. The previous Wednesday, Hearts went into this game 2 points clear of Celtic, having led for most of the season, and with essentially their best chance to win the title since that day in, 1986, when they had the title within their grasp, but they went to Celtic on the last day and a late goal cost them essentially the title. What happened this time, Colin?
Yeah, so I think
they went to Celtic and a late goal cost them the title.
Yeah, with the eyes of the wider sporting world, watching the final day of the Scottish Premiership for the first time in I would imagine quite a number of years, if not the first time ever. And this game had been conditioned by what had happened before it. Hearts had had the title in their own hands. They had drawn at Motherwell the previous week. They had been denied a potentially match-winning penalty decision in quite controversial circumstances. A few nights later, Hearts defeat Falkirk at home and Celtic go away to Motherwell. Motherwell played very, very well against Celtic. It's 2-2 going in the 96th, 97th minute. A very contentious handball decision, a penalty awarded, Celtic score, which sets up the final day with Celtic just needing to defeat Hearts at Celtic Park to win the title. And within this game itself, there was a couple of big decisions. I don't think there was anything massively controversial. So Hearts take the lead a couple of minutes before halftime. Lawrence Shankland header from a corner. And at that point, you kind of think, oh my God, Hearts are actually going to do this.
Right.
A couple of minutes later, handball penalty decision goes to VAR. Celtic get a penalty, probably within the rules, the correct decision. 1-1 set up this frantic second half, which really it was so encapsulating just watching it, sort of as a neutral. Although I kind of think everyone wants Hearts to win, in the sense that Scottish football has a very major issue with a lack of clubs winning the league. Rangers and Celtic are the only clubs who've won it since 1985. Celtic have now won, I think it's 13 of the last 14 or now 14 of the last 15. Whatever way it ends up, Scotland is uniquely one-sided / geared towards two clubs whose resources just go far beyond their competitors. So Hearts think they've held on until the 87th minute, whenever Celtic do break their hearts. Obviously, ironically, the goal's actually disallowed initially for an offside flag, although VAR intervenes and clearly isn't offside. The other players in the build-up, and it's not. So they go 2-1 up, and Hearts throw everything at it. Everything. I think there's 8 minutes of added time at the end. Hearts push up the field. They have a lot of half chances. Everything's just, nobody has any composure on the ball. Everything's going on. It's so frantic. It's so mad. You don't know what's going to happen. And what happens is that Hearts get a free kick. Doesn't really beat the first man, and the goalkeeper had gone up, everyone had gone up. Celtic have 3 players sprinting through on goal, and they score. Now, whenever that goal goes in, there's 40 seconds or so left on the clock, but there's a pitch invasion by the fans. And fans stream onto the pitch in their hundreds, if not more. And obviously watching this on TV, it's quite difficult to know exactly what goes on because there's a lot happening. But essentially, the game doesn't restart. Hearts players are sort of ushered off the pitch. There's a lot of images which seem to show Celtic fans confronting Hearts players on the pitch. And obviously, I think in that environment, and players should never ever have to be put in that situation for a start because they just shouldn't. I mean, and also the other thing about the game ending, nobody knows when it was ended because nobody heard a whistle. Martin O'Neill said after the match that he thought that there was still some of the game left to be played, and he was only told quite a bit of time after that it had been stopped. Hart said they weren't aware of the decision, and they were just taken off the pitch, and the game never restarted. Now, there is a precedent actually for this, like a week ago.
The Prague game.
Yeah, in Prague. Slavia Prague were seconds away from the title, 3-2 up against Sparta, whenever hundreds of their fans invade the pitch with flares and start causing absolute chaos, right? And this kind of is the same, but it isn't the same because that was an easy decision to make because Slavia Prague were going to win that league either way. So authorities could reverse that result. Slavia could take it and apologise, and they won the league this week instead. You can't really do that with this game because there's a lot of different things going on. Firstly, the goal kind of stops the game, so the game isn't in play to begin with. There's no kind of, it's very hard to prove when a game actually ends if the official says, I have ended it. But how do you do that with a whistle? And I think with so many fans still on the pitch at that point in time, would it have been a smart decision to try to restart it? How long would that have taken for maybe the 40 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever it was remaining? So I don't think, I think there's questions to be answered around how that got to this point, but pitch invasions is something that happens quite a bit in Scottish football. I remember I was on this pod a couple of months ago after the Scottish Cup game between Rangers and Celtic, whenever both sets of fans had sort of gotten onto the pitch at Ibrox, and after that match, the Scottish FA came out and was like, this isn't going to happen again. We're going to make sure that all the measures are in place, it doesn't happen again. But it has happened fairly regularly since, even after Celtic's penalty against Motherwell on Wednesday night. Fans streamed onto the pitch then too. So this is a problem for Scottish football, and it doesn't look great, does it, for the wider world to be watching this and for a match to end in those circumstances, because fans cannot be allowed to dictate when a match ends. That's just common sense.
And it also felt, I think if you were caught up in the romance of Hearts winning the title, the sight of the team that always wins the title celebrating so aggressively in the face of the side that had just seen their 60-year wait for to take the crown, their chances of ending that long drought evaporate. It didn't feel great. There was a kind of a little bit of a well done, he's 13 vibe to it. But against that, and I borrow a point here from Daniel Storey, Celtic came from a goal down to win in all their last 3 games. Admittedly, there were VAR controversies in 2 of those. They also won all of their last 7 matches of the season. They did everything that they could do, really, to take this title. And I guess you had, what made it a great title race is you had some really good teams battling for it. This time Celtic took it. Daniel, do you feel that this is, as some people were saying, a one-off, a rare combination of events, a freak circumstance which favoured a side like Hearts? Or do you think that we might be seeing more of this kind of thing?
I hope that we're seeing more of this kind of thing. I think very, very briefly, there's 3 answers to that. Firstly, Hearts didn't lose the title at Celtic Park. They lost the title by dropping points in 7 games, 7 league games against teams that finished in the relegation group, including Livingston, including Kilmarnock, including St Mirren, when they should have won those games. They beat the Old Firm 5 times. Nobody's done that since Aberdeen in '85. If you beat the Old Firm 5 times, you should win the league. That's where they lost it. The VAR controversy was controversial, but it's not where they lost the league. Secondly, this is only the first season of a 5-year plan from Tony Bloom to revolutionise Hearts recruitment and to try and disrupt, in his own words, Scottish football. He's kind of done the disruption bit in 1 season, if not the league title, but he will, I'm sure, will try and carry on. That said, there's no argument that this was a very, very good season to be not Rangers or Celtic in the Scottish Premiership, because it was the one with Wilfred Nancy, it was the one with Russell Martin staying on too long. It was a season in which Celtic kind of had the same interim manager and then permanent manager, in which there's civil war with the fans and the clubs. I just can't see the circumstances being as good as they were this season for an outsider. So I don't think Hearts are just going to have to keep at this level. I think they're going to have to improve again. And yeah, I really hope they do, obviously, because it's been a great title race for a number of reasons. I know it has ended messily and the scenes after the game were poor, but like I would prefer to look at the good aspect of what happened, which was for once the whole of the UK having their eyes on the Scottish title race.
And also the one person we haven't mentioned in all this is Martin O'Neill, who just this incredible achievement. He's 74 years old. You know, he's been a pundit for God knows how long. But the enthusiasm with which he's sort of approached it has been like infectious, really. I'm sure, yeah, we've all been sort of, you know, Team Hearts, but it was really hard not to be happy for him. I love that moment. One of the moments of a crazy day was when he sort of goes to hug a steward after the third goal, and then sort of remembers that maybe he shouldn't because she looked a bit scared, and he just sort of carried on. But yeah, in games when he's been in charge this season, Celtic have earned 14 more points than anyone else.
Right.
So I think, yeah, it does look good for Hearts in the mid to longer term. But had it been not for the Nancy incident, then Celtic would have probably won it quite quickly.
The O'Neill story is remarkable. I mean, his career from start to finish in football is mad. I mean, I don't know how many people know this, but whenever he started his career, he was still studying law at Queen's University in Belfast, and he was playing for Distillery, and he scored against Barcelona in the Cup Winners' Cup.
Really?
That precedes his move into English football. Obviously, with Nottingham Forest, wins the league, wins the European Cup, captains Northern Ireland, did a World Cup, and then goes on to have this incredible managerial career, which has been revived in the most remarkable circumstances. And Tim is right. Look, you know, we say all this about Hearts, but that is a story in itself. Celtic coming from so many games back to win so many games later on. It's not. I mean, I don't want to simplify it too much, but that's about man management and self belief and just telling players how good they are. And that for him to do that several generations after doing it previously is remarkable, and it's just very, very impressive.
Brilliant stuff. All right, well, that was great. And it was lovely to see Hearts given a rousing reception by their fans when they returned after the game too. Look forward to seeing how they all get on next season. Not receiving a grand reception on their return, meanwhile, were Liverpool after their shellacking at the hands of Aston Villa on Friday evening. We'll finish off today's Totally Football show with a quick word about what happened there and what happens next. All right, 4-2 for Aston Villa. 4-2 for Aston Villa against Liverpool on Friday evening, confirming Villa's return to the Champions League for next season with arguably one of their best performances of the season, maybe up there with that second leg against Forest, Daniel. But they took Liverpool apart in that second half.
Yeah, I think all of this season has felt like it is the sort of defining stage of this generation of Aston Villa, because you know the team that starts against Liverpool on Friday night is the oldest team that Villa have had, oldest starting 11 in more than 30 years. It's at 29.9 the average age. So it's like it's kind of now or never, and not quite often when you get those situations they sort of peter out. Whereas Unai Emery, because he's a fantastic coach and man manager and tactician, has got them peaking. They have qualified for the Champions League again. They were miles better than Liverpool. The second leg against Forest, it was such a kind of carbon copy of that performance. I know it was 4-2 and Van Dijk scored twice, but yeah, the attacking endeavour, the impetus, the kind of determination to seize what they consider to be their destiny it was really powerful. And Ollie Watkins has basically peaked at the right time. I'm sure that they will win the Europa League final, and there's a really interesting summer there because, as I say, the average age of the squad means you're going to have to make wholesale changes probably this summer, and yet to do it from such a position of strength with Champions League football and Champions League money means, yeah, like build Emery a statue, quite frankly, at Villa Park. It's a phenomenal job. It's absolutely mad that he's not been nominated for Manager of the Year this season, because it's a complete acceptance of how he's normalised overachievement at Aston Villa, because they shouldn't be a Champions League team, and they are.
All right. It would be, were they to win, as you predict confidently that they will on Wednesday night against Freiburg, the Europa League, it'll be their first piece of silverware in 30 years. The game taking place in Istanbul. Ollie Watkins with a brace in this game against Liverpool. That's now 10 goals in his last 11 matches in all competitions. I wonder how many, if any, Liverpool supporters were, certainly before Chelsea made their announcement on Saturday, if any Liverpool supporters were not that displeased to see Liverpool getting beaten, to see Slot's Liverpool getting beat this badly on Friday night.
Yeah, potentially. There was shambolic. Although Jamie Carragher summed it up quite well. He said Liverpool just don't excel in anything at the moment. I think that's right. You go through the defence, which has been shoddy all season. The midfield isn't a patch on last year. They don't have a prolific goal scorer. Salah's half the player he used to be, and they don't really have match winners. I mean, and the fullbacks have always been a strength of theirs for years, and now they're a bit of a weakness. So yeah, they've had to sort of turn to set pieces to try and keep them in Champions League contention, really. Well, that's in an attacking sense. In a defensive sense, they're woeful at set pieces. They've conceded 19. It's more than anyone else. And it was all summed up by this McAllister dive in the second. But it was laughable, right? I mean, it reminded me of Rivaldo because he sort of has his shirt grabbed by Conser, then he goes down, clutching his face, and then writhing around on the floor. It's absolutely pathetic. I've never seen it before where you've got the manager telling him to get up. You've got the captain trying to drag him up, and he's still writhing around. And even Carragher on comms couldn't defend him. I mean, it's just pathetic.
But this Liverpool performance and this Liverpool season has all been about a team who've completely lost any identity, right? So last year it was still Klopp's side, but it was with this sort of controlled elements that Slot brought in. And,
I like to call it heavy metal football.
As the segue to Mohamed Salah's extraordinary post on Saturday, essentially saying, yeah, since this former brand of football has been changed, this is really bad for the club. Obviously, we know Salah's leaving at the end of the season, and next week is his last game. I want to say this post is clearly about the manager, right? It's clearly about Slot. I mean, there's no ambiguity there. But what I want to reinforce is that, yes, he has been a part of this changing, but the players that Liverpool have signed have been overseen not by Arne Slot, but by Richard Hughes and by Michael Edwards. The players that Liverpool have signed do not fit any style of heavy metal football. This Florian Wirtz fit heavy metal football. This is a guy an incredibly talented player, but his talent is based on taking his time, finding the right pass, taking that extra touch. Does Federico Chiesa fit into that style? The one player that Liverpool signed the summer before that. They were happy to let Luis Diaz go, Darwin Nunez go, and they've replaced them with players who are good players but don't fit any real identity of football. And I actually think it's right that, Liverpool should absolutely try to revert back to that football, but that's not what this leadership team have done. It's like whenever we talk about Manchester United and this sort of counter-attacking and those fast moves, that's what Manchester United fans identify with. That's kind of what works. It's a simplistic way of looking at things, but when you try to evolve away from that, you get muddled up. And Liverpool's strategy now just seems entirely muddled up. And we talked about Xabi Alonso not being on the list and Arne Slot probably continuing for next season, but like the people who've overseen this, the people in their sporting department, like we kind of believe that if they're not going to leave the club this summer, then they might be looking at next summer. They don't see their long-term futures at Liverpool. So do they want to then change the entire structure of who the coach is and who the players they are bringing in? They want continuity right now, and I'm not sure continuity is the right answer. And I just think Liverpool have had a disastrous season, but they just lost their way as what they actually want to be.
Among the many issues, and this against a backdrop of stories that the club are preparing to confirm Arne Slot as the manager for next season, is the fact that not only did active Liverpool player Mo Salah post this 10 things I hate about Arne Slot post on Instagram, but virtually the entire Liverpool squad, as far as I can tell, liked it. I can't think of a similar situation where you have an active manager having a post criticising him being actively liked by the players that are supposedly still serving him. At this point, if you're Liverpool, do you not look at this and think, he's clearly lost the dressing room, or am I being wildly superficial, Daniel?
No, that's exactly what he's done. And I think we already suspected that, because as Jamie Carragher says, the team that won the league last year is not excelling at anything. So you can kind of blame above and below Arne Slot, and I think there is blame to be apportioned in both of those directions. But ultimately, it's the manager's job to create a team that is at least good at one thing and that can excel at something. And even not even that, just makes it easily identifiable what they're trying to do. And you can't. We already knew all that. We already knew he'd lost the dressing room because they're not playing. And yet now we get the guy who's leaving, and yes, there's some degree of reputation saving there because he's had a bad season. But the fact that all of his teammates like the tweet as well, like the only thing I can think of the last few years that's even more obvious than this was when like Leicester players went to a Christmas party when Steve Cooper was manager and had a sign that kind of said, "We miss you, Maresca." Like, how much more obvious could you be? And yet, despite all that, despite this kind of weird rom-com thing with Xabi Alonso, where he's such an obvious fit and it's such an obvious appointment, I don't know whether it's this sort of like American overthink, like we're the smart guys in the room, we know what we're doing and the fans don't. But I just think it's idiotic. I do not get it at all. And there's a very real chance that they stick with Slot and he gets sacked in October and everyone goes, we kind of knew that was going to happen.
As happened with Brendan Rodgers not all that long ago. Yeah. Liverpool, by the way, who are still not yet qualified, not confirmed for the Champions League, although this Sunday's results did help them a little bit. They are, I better check the points here. How many points are they ahead? They are, oh no, actually they're all but there, aren't they? Oh no, sorry. They are 4 points ahead of Bournemouth, who are 6th. Were Bournemouth to beat Man City on Tuesday night, stranger things have happened, then it's going to be a very nervous final day of the campaign. Anyway, final day fixtures are Liverpool against Brentford, and Bournemouth would then be at Forest. Whew. Well, there you go. Any other thoughts on that or anything else before we wrap it up for today, Colin?
There are actually some reports that Liverpool will look to bring in a new assistant coach, and the new assistant coach that they are looking at apparently is Etienne Reinen, who was Arne Slot's former assistant at Feyenoord. So if that does come to fruition, that would strongly suggest that Arne Slot will be in his post next season. Then also just one very, very quick point that Chelsea had been outrun in all 35 Premier League games until they played Liverpool at Anfield last weekend, and Liverpool were the first team to be outrun by Chelsea. So if you're talking about heavy metal football, I don't know what the opposite of that is, but yeah, Liverpool are that at the minute.
Enya, probably.
Shoegaze, I think. I'm not sure. Daniel, what are you going with? What's the genre?
Enya, I was going to say.
Enya.
Heavy metal football.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you might have nailed it right there. Very good. Daniel Storey, thanks as ever for providing the answers to the many questions that this Premier League weekend and indeed football has thrown up, almost literally. We will be back in a week's time with another Sunday night special. Our final one of this campaign, of course. And we've got loads coming up. The Euro show for a start on Tuesday. And then a show on Wednesday as well after the Monday and Tuesday games of the Premier League, which could be so very, very important. For now, though, it's many thanks, as I say, to Daniel, but also to Colin and to Tim, to Jake and producer Charlie in the booth, and viewers and listeners, wherever you are. Lovely to have you with us. Do join us again soon. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye.